Hello everybody, welcome. This is a bit of a special, a Total RL special. If you're watching this, you'll be watching it on totalrl.com, so thank you very much. We're here to promote our book. It's this little beauty, 100 Days That Shook Rugby League, and the man that is sat next to me is the mastermind behind it all, Richard de la Riviere. Richard, first of all, congratulations on the book. Just talk me through it a little bit. I mean, first and foremost, where did the idea come from? Because it's an incredibly difficult thing to try and knock down into 100 moments, rugby league.
Well, I write for League Express a column called On This Day, as I'm sure you're aware, and I come across so many amazing stories. I've done that column for about 6 years now, so it'll eventually finish, I suppose, after 7 or so years. And that's just a weekly column. Whatever happens on that particular day, I look back for that, things that happened on that date. And so I'd already compiled loads of stuff. So the majority of great games in the code's history I've already written about at some point. And then researching the history of the game, which is what I do, and I love reading about old stuff. I just keep coming across amazing things. And rugby league, for some reason in this country, we don't really give our history enough. Not compared to, I'm a big Liverpool supporter, maybe a bit too obsessed with history, but other sports as well are much more in tune with their history. And I don't think rugby league is in this country. It is in Australia. I don't think it is here. So a lot of the amazing stories I'm not even aware of. Right. I regard myself as a bit of a historian of the game. And I keep coming across new stuff, and I sort of got to. I didn't want to just write a book called On This Day, just putting it all into there, and wanted to come up with something a bit more than that. So that's what it just gradually evolved into that. I thought it would be more games than what it ended up with, but I just kept coming across more and more amazing sort of offbeat stories. So we've got just over half the book is games.
Yep.
And then there's about 40 odd just totally other random stories.
Hey, tell us about some of the totally random ones, because obviously when you get a book like this, you naturally think it's going to be what happens on a game day, but there are some fascinating stories that I didn't actually know about before this. So just, have you got any favourites in particular from away from the field?
Well, to be honest, probably the ones I enjoyed writing with are sort of the more gory ones, So I was on Radio Manchester a few weeks ago, and Trevor Hunter said, just tell us about 3 or 4 of them quickly, and Derek Beaumont was in the studio. I'm like, whoa, that's an amazing story. So for instance, Buller Stadden, the first great Welshman who came up to play for Dewsbury and murdered his wife and slashed his own throat and staggered into Dewsbury police station to confess, collapsed on the floor. And there's a couple of Newtown Jets players from the 1970s, and Newtown had a very notorious team. Several bad lads used to play for Newtown, and one of them ended up becoming an armed robber. He actually played in the World Cup final in 1972, Gary Sullivan, and he became a prolific armed robber in the 80s and early 90s, and nicked about $3 million, ended up getting caught and escaped and got picked up stealing a toothbrush in Adelaide and got banged up again. And one of his teammates, Paul Hayward, he was involved in an amazing story. He ended up trafficking heroin in Thailand and got caught and got sentenced to death, and then he got reduced to life imprisonment, and it was just one of the most inhumane prisons in the world. And the story of that was absolutely incredible. Rugby League Week magazine sent a journalist out in 1985 to interview him. Just an amazing story of what those guys went through. But they're just a few of the really gory stories. But a lot of the stories in the book are just the way the game's evolved. Obviously, the Super League War, and
it must be a book that I can only imagine is very challenging to put together, but also it must have been so much fun. I mean, whenever you do any sort of list article, it's fun to put it into book format. You must have had a good time writing it, if not challenging.
Well, yeah. I think when I first put it together, I did anticipate there'd be a lot more games, and then as I gradually came across the more and more offbeat stories, sort of ended up with fewer and fewer games. But yeah, some of the stories I didn't know about some of them when I first had the idea of the book, and I gradually sort of started coming across, and a couple of people knew I was writing the book and sent me a few ideas, and once I researched them, I think, well, yeah, I'll put that one in then. I mean, another one is from an Australian international from the 1948 Kangaroos tour, Bobby Lullum, who, playing in 1951 for Balmain, suddenly lost his form, and no one could work out why, and then he got taken to hospital, and it transpired that his mother-in-law had poisoned him. He'd been having an affair with his mother-in-law, and she was so ashamed she tried to bump him off. And and this was an Australian international. Imagine if that happened now to an Australian test player. And the ensuing trial was just the most attended, in terms of the public gallery, trial in Sydney legal history. It was just an absolute soap opera, and it got all the newspaper cuttings from the Sydney Morning Herald. Just wow, what a story!
You touched on it earlier on. We don't do a good job of really covering the sport history over here. Is this sort of the go-to now, a modern one? There's so many good books in rugby league. There's not enough, but what there is, they are very good. Is this the latest one really to really sort of be an education to people about the full history of rugby league?
Well, it's not exactly a conventional history, but it is in chronological order, and it will sort of, a lot of the amazing games are in there. So, if you want to read about the first ever Lions tour in 1910, and of course Rorke's Drift in 1914, the Battle of Brisbane, so in 1932, the Alan Prescott game. So all the great Ashes Test matches are in it, and there's the great World Cup stories. The 1954 team when Great Britain travelled to France without a coach and without any balls.
Yeah.
They were training with rolled up coats and still managed to win the World Cup. The 1970 final, which ended up as a bloodbath, and the great 72 final. So all the great games are in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, to a degree, but it's not a conventional history of the sport.
One thing that's fascinated me about this book, without really speaking to you about it, is how on earth does one person manage to define and get it right, the 100 moments, because there are so many moments. It must have been incredibly challenging and probably stressful at times to actually get it right.
Well, of course, I've written in my introduction that this isn't a definitive list. They're not in any order. It is just 100 days that shook rugby league out of the thousands and thousands of amazing things that have happened. I've just chosen 100 that I wanted to write about. So already I've had a Leeds fan get in touch saying, why isn't our treble winning season from 2 years ago? And I've had a Bradford fan saying, why have you only got negative stuff about Bradford? But Bradford are just the unluckiest club in rugby league history, I think. It's not my fault. So I've written about, Manningham defecting, but Bradford going bust in 1963, and wide to west, and the ridiculous Magic Weekend in 2007 when they were absolutely robbed blind. That's just,
that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and Joint's voluntary tackle didn't even get in. It's not my fault. But I've just chosen 100. So in my last book, I had a chapter of the 100 greatest players from 1980.
Yeah.
That was me putting them in my order, and obviously I had lots of people telling me I didn't know what I was talking about. But these aren't in any order.
No.
And there's many things that I could easily do another 100, for instance, and anybody could. But
how many clubs are from these shows? How many are included? Let's say primarily as a major part of one particular story in the whole 100.
As a rough guess, I'd say half the clubs will be involved in a lot of the games. So just for instance, I've tried to get in touch with a few of them recently. So Hunslet's winning all 4 cups in 1908. Lee are included with the 1971 Cup final and them signing McDonald Bailey. Sheffield, of course, with them winning the Challenge Cup in 98. Featherstone winning the Cup in 83. You'd expect a lot of the bigger clubs to feature quite a bit. Workington, John Burke, one of their players, broke his neck in a game in 78, so that's in. Whitehaven getting so close to Wembley when Leeds beat them in the semi-final in 57, so that's in. So a lot of the clubs are in. There's a few that aren't. I haven't tried to fit them all in there.
Yeah. We're sort of launching the book officially here at Philip Howard Bookstore in Roundhay. If you want the book, come here or buy it from Total RL. You can do that either way. But there already has been a good reception. Alex Murphy provides the foreword, and I know that a lot of other high-profile people within the game have already contacted you, have contacted us, and have plenty of good things to say about it, actually.
Well, yeah, I think it's a good title. I think that my last book did very well, but the title it sounded a bit more like an academic study, really. But this is a good title, and I think it will. Just the title alone will make people think, So I hope that's the case anyway. But yeah, I've had some pretty good feedback, and I believe it's selling pretty well already.
And finally, just to wrap up, I did mention it, but where can you buy the book? Because that's the most important thing, obviously.
Well, the totalrl.com shop. So if you go onto totalrl.com, you'll see a tab shop, and it's in there. Philip Howard Bookshop, obviously, Street Lane in Roundhay, Leeds, where we are now. But they're the main 2 places.
Brilliant. Well, I think that'll do nicely. Congrats on the
book.
It's there it is in all its glory. Don't forget to get a copy. It's well worth a read. I can endorse it myself. It's been fantastic, and Richard, I hope it goes very well.
Spot on. Thank you. Cheers, Matt.